Hi everyone. Um, I'm gonna make a video about what it was like back in my day. You know, you hear old people saying that, like, "Oh, back in my day, I didn't have TV. I just had a radio." Well, I'm gonna make a back in my day video, and yes, I had TV back in my day, and I had a radio. Um, but I did not have this. I did not have an iPad. Oh, look at that. Look, 1911. That was kind of cool. Hold on a second. Let me do that again. Ooh, ooh, an iPad. That's like so super neato. An iPad within an iPad within an iPad within an iPad. Yeah. So back in my day, I didn't have an iPad. I had a computer though. When I was like really little, it was the 80s. Back in my day, it was the 80s. And we had better movies back then, and we had, we didn't have the internet, but I had an old Apple Macintosh computer, and my dad paid like $2,000 for it because, it was like awesome. It was like the screen was like this big, and it was black and white, didn't have color. You'd have to put a hard little disc in it. It didn't have a floppy disk, it had like a hard disc. And then I'd have these games on there. I had Winter Olympics, and I had Winter Olympics, and I had like some other game where it was like an adventure, and you typed out what you're gonna do. It was like really, really old. Like that game was so old, it didn't even have any graphics. You just had to read. But that was good because I was a kid. I needed to read, right? Anyway, so that's what I had when I was little, and we had a Nintendo. Before we had a Nintendo, we had an Atari. But then, Nintendo came out and Mario came out, and that was really fun. Actually, I never played Mario. I just played Gyromite. You have this little dude, and like, you have this thing that hooks up to your, like, little Nintendo thing somehow, and you, like, press the red button and you press the blue button, and then those little pipes either go up or down, and if you do it wrong, the guy gets smashed. That was such a fun game. I loved that game. I wonder if they have that game anymore, like online somewhere, like just for fun. That would be so fun to play Gyromite. So yeah, that was when I was a little kid. And you know, now I have a cell phone, see? And it took me forever to get a cell phone. I think I didn't get a cell phone until after the year 2000. Like, when did cell phones become popular? Because my ex-husband had one, and I lived with him at the time. Like, he was my boyfriend, and I lived with him, and he had a cell phone, so I didn't really see why I would need a cell phone. Like, I was from another time. Nobody had to have cell phones. You could like get away without having a cell phone. But I think eventually, like in the 2000s, I got a cell phone because I don't remember why. I think maybe he wanted me to get one because if I was driving on the freeway somewhere by myself, then it was like better to have one. And it was just like this little Nokia something. I don't know what kind, but it was like, obviously it didn't have like, it wasn't a smartphone because it was old. So if you wanted to text somebody, which did they even have texting when they first had to? I don't even think we could text back then. I mean, if we did, I didn't. But the next phone I got was a Razor, and I know you could text on that one because people would try to text me, and then I'd just call them up and be like, I don't text. It's too hard. I don't do that. And it was like, you'd have to press the buttons, and I don't. Some people still do that. I cannot press a button 3 times for a letter. I would just like, I couldn't do it. Like, I would try to do it sometimes, and I couldn't do it. My brain couldn't do it. It was impossible. So, yeah. Speaking of cell phones, I remember a long time ago, like in the early 90s, my stepmother I had, she had this really big fat phone. It was huge. It was like a cell phone. It was like one of the first ones that came out, and we got one, and she thought that was like so awesome. Like, it was like seriously something to be jealous about, because if you had one of those big ass cell phones, it meant you had a lot of money, or you were like, it was like the cool new gadget, you know? So anyway, she's like, oh, we got a cell phone. And she was like, you know, she wanted to like go show it off somewhere. So we went to the video store to rent VHS tapes at Blockbuster. Yeah, they don't have that anymore, do they? So we went to Blockbuster, and like she called my dad, and she was like so proud of that thing. Like, there were other people in there, and they were like, wow, she has a cell phone, or whatever they called it. I think she called it a car phone. I don't know if they called it a cell phone. She would say it was a cell phone. So she would be on that big ass thing being like, hey, so these are the movies they have. You know, Pulp Fiction just came out. Like, you know, whatever just came out. But it was so funny because it was giant. And now it's funny thinking about that, because it was like so long ago that it was a video store and an old cell phone. And those things combined make it like, wow, that's like a really long time ago. Speaking of video stores, back in my day, we didn't have DVDs. We had VHS tapes. And before that, we had these things called beta tapes. They were like these little tapes that were kind of like VHS. They were actually kind of better because they were smaller. But I don't know why these big VHS tapes took over those. Because I remember we had a beta tape player. And we'd have these little tapes. DVDs came out later. Like, I remember even like in the 90s, like even the mid to later 90s, they still were using VHS tapes a lot more. And then, you know, people started getting DVDs. But then before DVDs and after VHS tapes, there was this short-lived thing. It was like these, do you remember like those laser discs? They were like huge. They looked like records. And then like, I remember these friends of ours, they had like a laser disc, and they were like, look, a laser disc player. And they would like put this giant disc in there. And I don't remember like what the quality was, like if it was better than DVD or, well, obviously it wasn't, but if it was like a lot better than a tape probably, but I don't know. I don't remember the quality, but they were just so big that they didn't last. And, you know, I guess people must have like spent a lot of money on Laserdisc players. I don't really know how much they were, but that kind of sucks if you like invest in a Laserdisc player and then they stop making them because DVDs come out. So yeah, I remember those. And the internet. When I was like 12 years old or something, I didn't have the internet yet because it wasn't really popular yet. But I had this thing called a Videotel. It was like this cute little computer, and it wasn't really a computer. All it was is a thing to go on this little, it wasn't called a website yet because it wasn't the web. It was something else. I don't know what it was, but it was this social network thing, like from a really long time ago. This was like in the late 80s, like 1989 or something. I think I got it. And so it was only, the one I had was only for people in Houston and Dallas. So you could get on there and you can go in these like chat rooms or whatever, and you could not call people, you could talk to people who either lived in Houston or Dallas. So I would go on there, and I was like 12, so it was really stupid. And of course, like, it was like this new technology, and my parents, like, they didn't know how to, you know, monitor me on there. And I'm so lucky, like, I didn't get killed, because I'd meet like some boy on there, and they'd be like, hey, what's your address? And I'd be like, oh, here it is. And I would give people my address, not so they could come over, but because you couldn't send pictures over that thing. You know, there were no scanners. There was no way to send a picture. So if you wanted to trade pictures with somebody, you actually had to mail it in the actual mail. So, yeah. So it turned out okay. Like, you know, there were no psychos. Actually, there might have been one psycho, and he never sent me a picture. But he was like, you want to be pen pals and write letters in the mail? And I'm like, okay. And so he said he was like 13 or something. But then one time he wrote me a letter, and he said that he was outside And him and his brother were outside, and like somebody like dropped, they were like naked outside, and somebody like dropped a peanut butter jelly sandwich on their own penis. Like his brother dropped a peanut butter jelly sandwich on his penis, and then the dog like licked it all off, and it was like so funny. The dog licked the peanut butter jelly. I mean, come on, this guy was like probably some old pervert guy, like getting off on sending some little girl like some stupid little fake messages about peanut butter and jelly on penises. Like, that never happened. Nobody would do that. If somebody's really outside, and how would they drop a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on the penis to begin with? And even if they did, and the dog licks it off, you think they just sit there and let their dog lick that? That's nasty. They could bite, you know. They think it's a sandwich or like some, I don't know. So crazy. So, yeah. I am so lucky I didn't get like killed or raped and murdered or whatever. But then later we got the internet, and that was cool because it's like I was like one of the only people with the internet. So then I would like look up people at school, and I'd be like, oh, I wonder, you know, it's like you could go to the town you lived in and see everybody that was online. And you could be like, oh, I know her. She goes to my school. So you could like write somebody. I remember I wrote this one girl and be like, hey, you have the internet too. And like she'd write back and be like, yeah, we have the internet. We're like the only people in the whole school that have the internet. This was like in the early 90s, like maybe like 93 or something. So yeah, we were always up to date on all of the new happenings. So yeah, that was interesting. And speaking of cell phones, I'm a really bad texter. Back in my day, we didn't have these things, and we had phones that plugged up into the wall, and we didn't lose these. You know, I always lose this. You can talk to anybody that I text or talk to on the phone, and I always lose this. Now it's right here. So sometimes I lose it and it runs out of battery, and then I really can't find it. But you know, in the 90s and stuff, I used to have like a cordless phone, but the thing was, it's like it actually plugged into the wall, you know, and then you had the little thing that came out. But I'm pretty sure you could like press a button, like if you lost your phone, you could just easily like press the button and then it would ring, and it was bigger, so it was easier to find. Like this thing, you can like, it gets down in the couch cushions all the time, you know, whatever. So what else? What else should I talk about? Well, when I was like 17, I went to some chat room on the internet. It was Prodigy. And on Prodigy, this is before I got AOL, but on Prodigy you had to like have a number for your email address. And mine was pxkt98b at Prodigy, I guess, .com. I don't really know. Or actually, you know what? It was just pxkt98b. It wasn't even at anything, because back then you could only write to people that had Prodigy. You couldn't write to the people that had AOL. And so I went to some chat room, and there was like some girl there that was like 16, and she was just like, oh, I'm an actress, and I'm in a movie, and if anybody wants to be in movies in Hollywood, well, why don't you like write me or something? And so I wrote her, and so she like apparently like gave my name to some guy who like called me and was like, yeah, well, if you want to be in a movie, you have to like take a bunch of naked pictures of yourself and naked videos and then mail them to us, because we got to see what you look like naked if you want to be a movie star. I mean, come on, hello, creep. Like, that girl was obviously just him, and he was just obviously some perv that wanted to get like naked pictures of girls. Like, he would like target like teenage girls and try to like get them to do things like that. I think I never ended up sending him anything like that. I think I sent him like a bunch of pictures with just clothes on or something, and he was like, this is not naked. You don't get the job. Yeah, okay, you're like, you're stupid. You're fake. I shouldn't even have sent him anything. But, you know, yeah, that's creepy. It's like back then my parents like didn't know how to monitor me on that because it was so new and they didn't use it yet. They didn't know what I was doing on there. So, yeah, be careful of the internet. Especially back in the 90s. Back in the 90s, internet was even worse because nobody knew what people, like, it wasn't as easy to, like, trace people, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it was. I don't really know. But it was like networks. It wasn't even intertwined together or something. So, yeah, I'm so lucky I didn't get killed back then by some crazy person that I was giving addresses to. Like, who does that? Why was I so stupid? I don't know. I'm glad I'm not that stupid anymore. But, yeah, that was back in my day. Back in my day, the movies were good. We had Ferris Bueller. I showed my sister Ferris Bueller because she was born in, like, 1991, and I showed her Ferris Bueller when she was in, like, I don't know, elementary school, and she'd be like, oh, the 80s were so awesome, and I barely just missed it. And I'm like, yeah, you missed it. So, yeah, that was back in my day, and, we didn't have iPads, and now we do. And when we wanted to hang out with somebody, we actually had to go call them and hang out with them. It wasn't like now. It wasn't like now everybody like just kind of talks online and they don't always like hang out in real life. And it's like it feels funny like to call somebody like I never call anybody on this. If I want to talk to somebody, I would text them, you know, or write them a message because it's like now you feel like if you call somebody like ring ring hello, you feel like you're like invading their privacy or something, like you're ringing their world and then your voice is on there and they're like all of a sudden like forced to talk to you. Does it feel like that? Because sometimes when people call me, I'm like, somebody's calling me, what do I do? It's like I forget that this was used to be like talking was like the form of communication that you would do, and it's not till like recently that we don't really do that anymore. And then texting, it's like I'm not always paying attention to my phone, so people text me and they'll think that I'm going to text them back, and then I might see it like 5 hours later and be like, oh, okay, and they're like, what? But you gotta understand, this is not me. I'm like, you know, I didn't have this. This wasn't back in my day. If I wanted to write messages to people when I was a teenager, I'd get a piece of paper, write them a note, fold it all up, and pass it. That's what we did. We passed notes. We didn't do this. We didn't text. But, you know, it's convenient. It's good. But, you know, forgive me if I'm like from another time where it doesn't really come naturally. It's like my great grandma. She can't use the remote control on the TV because it's too hard to do. Like back in her day, they didn't have TV. They had the radio. And so all of a sudden she's supposed to like know how to use a remote control on a television set. Well, that's just too hard. Like it's just too hard for me to like remember to text people back. And like my grandma, her daughter, my great grandma's daughter, she has a Facebook. Did she ever go on it? No. She has a digital camera that somebody got her for her birthday. And she takes pictures of stuff, and then she never does anything because she's like, oh, it's a digital camera. What do I do now? She doesn't know how to like hook it up to the computer or put in an SD card. She doesn't know how to do that. So now she just, even though she has a digital camera, she goes to like Walgreens and she buys like those little throwaway cameras, and because she knows how to do that. It's like film, you know, you get it, you take pictures, then you take it back to Walgreens and they print them. I'm like, you know what? You can do the same thing with the digital camera. Just take the pictures and then go back to Walgreens or wherever and just say, oh, I want to print pictures off my digital camera. And, you know, it will probably save money too. So, yeah, back in her day and back in my day. So that was my video. I hope you liked it. So I'll see you next time.